But my wife tells me which pants to wear. All right. So
you're not alone.
what?
You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. I just tell her it's a good thing I wear pants. Okay. Talk about weight loss, winning at losing. Got Ozempic. How many of you have heard of Ozempic?
Yeah.
About everybody? Okay, all right. We'll talk about it. Because it's the rage. It's really bothering me because, I'm from pediatric background. And they're saying, give it to kids. Like they want to license it for 12-year-olds. And I'm just like sick. So anyway, we want you to be aware. All right, so this is the weight of the world, so to speak, in 1975, and the bluer and the darker blue, the better the weight. And as you see on the scale on the right, as you go to the warmer colors, is the higher weight categories. And these are the percentages of obesity. So virtually the world in 1975 had 15% or less obesity. In some places, 0. Okay, most of Asia, Southeast Asia particularly, and lots of Africa, we would say, well, they're starving. Well, it's interesting. Ethiopia wasn't the darkest blue there. So, kind of interesting that other areas that were not Ethiopia had lower rates of obesity. So that's 75. What happened by the time of 2016? And I could show you a whole bunch in between, and even just show you just a progressive thing that where we've gotten to 40% rates of obesity, and they are in the United States. Okay, we are number one. But not in a good way. Okay? So you can see there are very few blue areas in the world now that have low rates of obesity. Okay? Still those early ones, Africa and Asia, are kind of holding it a little bit. All right, I showed you this one already about the rising incidence of obesity and extreme obesity. And what's the problem?
Processed foods.
What has caused all of this?
Right.
And as Dr. Michael Clapper, or actually Dr. McDougall would say, it's the food. It's the food. Okay. This was a study done, one of the other large population studies done. The EPIC Oxford study that was comparable to the Adventist Health Study 2 diet study, and looking at different kinds of eating patterns and their health outcomes. And they were looking at the comparison of meat eaters, fish eaters, vegetarians, and vegans. And they were looking at how that influenced their weight. That's the body mass index. So body mass index, or BMI for short, is an index that they use in population studies. It's not perfect, but since everybody kind of agrees that the body mass index, which is a ratio of your height and your weight, and you come out, put a formula in, and you get a number, that a body mass index of under 25 is normal, 25 to 30 is overweight, above 30 is obese, above 40 is extreme obesity, or some call it morbid obesity. So they were trying to correlate the weight, or body mass index, with these 4 different kinds of food eating groups. The meat eaters, fish eaters, pescatarians you might say, vegetarians, and then vegans that are totally plant-based. So one of the things that was interesting is their conclusions here. And I don't know if you can read that on if you're far back, you might be able to read this, but it says fish eaters, vegetarians, and especially vegans had lower body mass index than meat eaters. Differences in macronutrient intakes, that is like proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, accounted for about half the difference in mean body weight between vegans and meat eaters. Now, this is the takeaway here on this study. High protein and low fiber intakes were the factors most strongly associated with increasing BMI. Now, if I were to ask you, what in foods, obviously the foods are the problem, what in foods, what in the diet is causing the rampant increase in obesity and overweight? Most people say, well, it's too much sugar, it's too much this. High protein and not enough fiber. See? So what? Fiber? Not enough fiber and too much protein. Never heard that before. Well, this study showed that. So, the question is, why does animal protein cause weight gain? Good question. Well, this study was published that showed that a diet high in animal protein had all of these increases. You have almost a double increase, that would be 100%, in total death rate, a 4 times increase in cancer risk, a 5 times increase in diabetes, and significantly higher insulin growth factor 1 levels. So IGF stands for insulin growth factor. Insulin growth factor is a hormone your body makes to stimulate growth. And you stimulate growth with this insulin growth factor when you get a lot of animal protein. It does not happen with plant protein. There's differences. They both have protein, but animal protein stimulates the synthesis of insulin growth factor. Insulin growth factor is like fertilizer. Okay? It's like fertilizer. So if you put fertilizer out on a patch of ground, what's going to grow? Whatever seeds are out there, right? Or whatever plants out there. So if you put vegetables, they'll grow better. If you put weeds, they grow better. So insulin growth factor is non-discriminatory. It does not just grow certain cells faster. It grows everything faster. So you may grow taller. Your muscles may get bigger. But your cancer cells also grow faster. And everybody's got cancer cells in their body right now. I mean, I've got one probably, or 2 or 3 or a few hundred. Everybody's got cancer cells. You've got an abnormal cell in your body at any given time. The only question is are you going to take care of it, or is it going to take care of you? And you have the ability to either control it and knock it out by having a good, strong immune system and get rid of that thing, or you hamper your immune system, fertilize that thing and allow it to grow, feed it with sugar and blood supply and help it grow faster, and have it kill you. So insulin growth factor is not your friend. So it helps grow people bigger and fatter. So that's why you don't want, one of the reasons why you don't want animal protein or too much. But the other thing is protein, the source also, remember, you don't get pure protein. You don't go to the market and buy protein. Like, okay, except for these people who say, well, can I want a protein supplement? Can you give me some protein powder? Right? That's the only time you're going to get 100% protein. But people don't eat that way. Right? How do you get your protein? You get it from food, and you can either get it from an animal source or a plant source. So the protein comes as a package. So protein does not come pure protein. You're getting it packaged, and it's how it's packaged that makes the difference. So let's compare beans, legumes versus meat. Okay? Plant protein versus animal protein. So fiber is really high in beans and legumes. Okay? Very high. Your best fiber bang for your buck comes from legumes, beans, peas, lentils, as opposed to meat, which has 0 fiber. And we'll talk more in depth about fiber tomorrow, okay? But that is vitamin F. That is the highest deficiency in the United States. I'll give you a preview, and that's fiber deficiency. So the beans are high in phytochemicals, which are plant chemicals, enzymes and all those things that are living, whereas you don't have any in animal protein. Beans are high in antioxidants, and they're minimal in meat. Okay? Antioxidants protect your body from damage. You just had a meal, you're digesting it, you're oxidizing it, you're forming free radicals that can damage your body, but because if you have the right diet, you have antioxidants in your diet that you ate that counteract the free radicals from doing damage to your body, to your cells. But there's none in meat. But if you ate plants with plant protein, you'd have antioxidants that could counteract that. Low in saturated fat, high saturated fat in the meat. Saturated fat is not your friend. Excessive saturated fat, which is primarily animal fats, any animal fats are primarily saturated. So I remember we were talking about, well, you have avocado oil. You have to remember that when we talk about fats, there's always a mixture. There's always a mixture. So avocados, you say, oh, that's monounsaturated fat. Well, not 100%. Avocados are mainly monounsaturated, but there's a little bit, there's like 11% saturated fat, and there's another percent polyunsaturated fat. There's a mixture, but it's predominantly monounsaturated. So we call it a monounsaturated fat because it's predominantly, but there's a mixture in there. So the saturated fat that's in meat, we don't like the animal saturated fat because it promotes dementia. We know now that high levels of saturated fat in the diet are going to promote dementia later in life. It raises your blood cholesterol levels. It increases inflammation in your body. Okay, what about the iron? Well, you have iron in beans. Beans are a great source of protein, fiber, and iron, and calcium, but it's not blood. You can squeeze a bean and you don't get any blood out of it, okay? It's got iron in it, but it's not blood iron, whereas meat has, the iron in it is not like bean iron, it's from blood. It's the blood that's in there. And there's a reason why the Bible says, what are you supposed to do when they kill the animal? You're going to eat it. Drain the blood. Don't strangle it in its blood and all that. Just avoid the blood. Even back in the New Testament times, they're saying, tell them not to do that. Not have the blood in the animals. Because in the past, when I was finishing medical school and going into practice, they said, oh, have them get iron, red meat so they can get iron. Otherwise, they're going to get deficient. They're going to get anemia, iron deficiency anemia. Well, now you don't hear that anymore because now we know that the iron from blood is pro-oxidizing. So it's corrosive. It's not good for your body. So that iron is not good. If you need iron, the worst thing you can do is get it from blood. Okay? You have to get it either in your diet, like from beans and whole grains, things like that, or you have to take a supplement if you have to. So you don't want it, like iron rusts. So too much iron is not good in your body, of that kind of iron. And the body cannot control the absorption of that kind of iron. It comes straight through, and your body is trying not to get too much iron in the body. There's this new 5-GC, which is a molecule, which is a very strange molecule, that is in most animals except humans. And it's in most mammals, too, not in humans. And so if you get that molecule into your body, it's recognized as foreign because the human body does not generate that molecule. It's just in muscle. And so it forms antibodies to it. And so when it forms antibodies against it, it's fighting against that molecule, then it causes inflammation. Okay? Inflammation. Inflammation chronically is not your friend. So the meat has new 5-GC. Now, there are some animals that don't have that new 5-GC like us humans. And you can eat those, I guess. That's dogs and kangaroos. All the other animals you can think of have new 5-GC, so yeah. But if you want to eat your dog, okay, you won't get the new 5-GC. You might get other things, but you won't get that. No, I don't find too many people eating their dogs these days. But cats would be a problem. No TMAO produced. Trimethylamine oxide. That's what that is. Trimethylamine oxide is formed from carnitine and choline that are broken down from meat. And when they're broken down in your intestines, your bacteria, or your microbiome, which we'll talk about more tomorrow, your microbiome digests the carnitine and the choline and forms trimethylamine. The trimethylamine is absorbed into your body. The liver says, I hate this stuff, let's get rid of it, and it forms trimethylamine oxide. Unfortunately, before it can get rid of it, it can damage your arteries. So there's a higher correlation of trimethylamine oxide in your blood to heart disease than there is to cholesterol. So there's a pretty high correlation with high cholesterol and heart disease, even higher with trimethylamine oxide. But that only occurs when you eat meat consistently. If you don't eat meat, you don't form those you don't feed those bacteria, they die out. And then if they take vegans and then they give them some meat, nothing happens because they don't have those bacteria there to make that transformation. But if they keep eating meat for 2 weeks, those bacteria come back and then they start forming trimethylamine. So we know it's a bacterial microbiome synthesis thing, but only if you feed it. And then, of course, you have all the environmental contaminants. Environmental contaminants, most of your environmental contaminants are going to be contained in animal products. Okay? Yes, if you can buy organic vegetables and grains and legumes and all that, great. But the best way to reduce your exposure to environmental contaminants is the elimination of animal products. Because these things, these products and the flesh are getting fed and exposed to these environmental contaminants all the time, almost every time they eat. It's in their feed, it's whatever they're giving them. It's concentrated in their bodies day after day after day, and then finally they're harvested for eating. And so the only way that animals can get rid of their toxins is either through their milk, through their eggs, or through their offspring. Otherwise, they keep it. It doesn't go anywhere. So it's either in their bodies, or it's in their milk, or in their eggs that they produce, or in their offspring. That's the only way they can get rid of toxins. Well, most of the time we're eating those, or some people are eating those, and so they're getting all of these contaminants. Okay, so this is from the Adventist Health Study 2, which again looked at those 5 groups of different dietary patterns. The only group that had normal BMI as a group were the totally plant-based category. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't be normal weight and be in the other categories, but as a group, when they averaged the whole group, the only group that really ended up there was the vegan group. So what about fiber? So that's about protein. What about fiber? All right, fiber is a carbohydrate. It's a carbohydrate that your body cannot digest. And the old days when we were going through medical school, what was it called? Roughage, right? What are you getting from roughage? Well, that's just the stuff that you can't digest, and it's just waste, and you need to get rid of it. That's roughage. Well, now we know that this roughage is really important. It's called fiber. All right, so where is the fiber? Fiber only occurs in plants. Only. You cannot get it from any animal product. Fiber is, remember, undigestible. And you think, well, okay, what good is that? Well, it's a good thing it's undigestible. Otherwise, the bacteria in your colon wouldn't get any, because you would get it all, and you wouldn't share any with the bacteria. So you need fiber, and fiber is the undigested part that the bacteria can digest. Okay? Well, all the animal products, whether it's meat, fish, dairy, or any products, eggs, they all are completely digestible. It may take days, but it will get it done. You get 0 fiber. So where is fiber not so much? Well, we take the plants and we process them. In other words, we eliminate the fiber, and so, or reduce it markedly, and so you get not so much fiber. Very little's left, small percentage. Then when you get to the animal products, you get 0. Now there's a full plate living program that address weight control and weight loss purely on the basis of fiber. And I thought it was really good. I mean, we incorporated part of that into our programs because it is good. It's focusing on what you should put into your body, not on what you should take out. And what you do is you want to crowd out. If you're trying to get fiber in your body, naturally it's going to come down to eating more plants. Because you're going to realize, well, I need so many grams of fiber a meal to get so much a day. If I eat this, I get 0 fiber. If I eat that, I only get about 2 grams of fiber, and I need a lot more than that. Okay? So eventually you crowd out the 0 fiber and the low fiber products, and you beef up the healthy foods that have the fiber. So it is a very good way to help with weight control or weight loss. All right, so we'll go more into this tomorrow about the different kinds of fiber, because again, there are all different kinds of fiber. There's not just one kind of fiber. And it's not Metamucil, okay?
No.
You don't go and get a powder off the shelf, and this is your fiber. No. You want to get it, again, whole food, and you want to get in a variety of foods. How does fiber help? Well, we look at 3 areas: the stomach, the small intestine, and the colon, or the large intestine. What does it do? Okay, in the stomach, you've got stretch receptors and you've got motility. In other words, the movement of processing the food and sending it out of the stomach. All right, so how does fiber do? Well, when the stomach is filled, you have these stretch receptors that stimulate the vagus nerve, one of the cranial nerves that goes to the brain and says, the stomach is full. Like, okay, that's enough. Shouldn't fill it anymore. Okay. So you don't want the pain receptors going off, you want just the stretch receptors going off. And it says, okay, that's enough. So fiber helps to bulk up that stomach. So this is where we get to calorie density, and this is an important concept, and it's actually a very simple concept in thinking about weight loss and weight control, and that is the calorie density approach. Calorie density is just a measure of how many calories there are per unit of food. Okay? It's just how many calories are there, and we usually use a pound, so we compare apples to apples. We start saying, okay, how many calories per pound does this have? Right? And so the higher the calorie density, the higher the calories per pound. Okay, you get that? So it's the amount of calories per pound of whatever food you want to take. Doesn't matter whether it's grains, vegetables, fruits, meats, candy, whatever. Okay, it's just how many calories are there per pound. Because in general, most people eat a certain weight of food at every meal and per day. When they follow them day in and day out, they measure the stuff. They're eating about the same amount of food per weight, in pounds every day. So if you can cut down on the calories, they're eating the same weight. But if you cut down on the calories in that weight of food, you'll get less calories, right? All right. So this is what 500 calories can look like in your stomach. So if you have oil, which is the highest calorie density product you can eat, because it's 100% fat and it's 4,000 calories per pound. Okay? On the other end of the spectrum, you have non-starchy vegetables. Let's say like lettuce, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, artichokes, asparagus, cucumbers. They're 100 calories per pound. A pound. You can eat a pound and it'll be only 100 calories. Then you have everything in between. Okay, you have fruits that are about 300 calories per pound. You have beans, potatoes, and rice that are around the 400, 500 calories per pound, sometimes up to 600 at most. Meat is like around 1,100 calories per pound. Cheese is much higher. Okay, so you have this whole spectrum. So obviously, 500 calories is in all of these. Which one's going to make you feel full? right? Is that 500 calories of oil make you full? No, your stomach has hardly got anything that's filling it or stretching it. You're going to feel full on those fruits and vegetables, on 500 calories. You're done. Whereas we have the oil and the cheese and the meat, you say, I'm still hungry, because you haven't stretched the stomach. All right, now take a look at this. This one really kind of blew my mind. You can have either, this is the same calories on the left and the same calories on the right. And the total on the left, you can have your choice. You got 3 choices. 2 pounds of hamburger, 2.5 pounds of chicken, or a pound of Oreos. And they're even vegan. Okay, any of those 3. Think of those, any of those 3. Which one would you have? Okay. Now, on the right, the same amount of calories are 1 pound of bananas, 1 pound of apples, a pound of mangoes, a pound of kale, a pound of spinach, a pound of carrots, a pound of cucumbers, a pound of tomatoes, a pound of sweet potatoes, and 1 pound of celery. That's 10 pounds? 10 pounds of food. And you got the same amount of calories as a pound of Oreos. Which could you finish in a day?
Oreo.
Yeah, easily, right? A pound of Oreos, gone. You'd be lucky if you made it in a whole day. Okay? But how could you eat 10 pounds of this stuff? How long would it take you to eat 10 pounds of this? Yeah, maybe 3 days. Okay? Or more. Yeah, it'd be very filling. It'd be hard to get through this list. And you'd have the same amount of calories. But it'd take you so much longer. Okay? That's what we mean by calorie density. When you're eating lower calorie density food, you can eat more. That's why I say you can eat more and weigh less. And you don't have to count calories. You don't have to count the amount, this many calories and this, because you know the calorie density is low. Okay, this is the American Cancer Institute and the World Cancer Research Fund recommends what should be your average for the day, 567 calorie density. It should be your average. So you eat a fruit here, a vegetable there, bread there, and your average should be 567 calories per pound per day. That should be your average. Okay, remember that, 567. Okay, here's a calorie density chart, and it's looking at 567, right between the 500 and the 600. And you've got vegetables on the left, 100 calories per pound. You got fruits next, 300 calories per pound. You got oil on the way on the other side, 4,000 calories per pound. Okay? So if you're eating all plants, whole, unprocessed, you're getting legumes that are 600 calories per pound, all the way down to 100 calories per pound, because you're getting vegetables and fruits, and that unprocessed CC mean unprocessed intact whole grain. Okay? So you've got legumes, grains, fruits, and vegetables. They're going to be 600 or below. So on the average, you're easily going to make 567. Unless all you ate was beans, then you're going to get 600. If all your total diet was beans, 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 and more beans, then it'd be boring, but you'd only be at 600. But if you dilute it down with anything else, it's going to lower that average down below 600. You easily get 567. It doesn't take much to get down below 600, or to get to 567. But look at the thing I want you to see most is where you have the 500 calories per pound on the unprocessed carbohydrates, which is grain mainly, to look over to the right, 1,400 calories per pound processed carbohydrates. What happens when you refine the grain, you go from 500 calories per pound, all of a sudden you're up to 1,400. You've practically tripled the calorie density. Okay, you tripled it. So, why is white flour bad for you? Because it's tripled the calorie density. That's why when they say cut out the carbs, most of the carbs are the refined grain. Is the processed grain, is the white flour. Whether it's the pretzel, the bagel, the, whatever it is, the donut, it's all white flour. And that white flour is at 1,400 calories per pound calorie density, way above the 567 you should be at. All right, and then you have everything in between. Now, nuts and seeds are at 2,800 calories per pound. Now, this is a little bit of a misnomer, that 2,800 calories, because your body actually cannot extract all of those 2,800 calories per pound out of the nut. Okay, you probably get at most 75% of those calories out by digestion, because the fiber in the nuts is so strong that you don't really extract that. But when they analyze how many calories are in the nut, you know, they do it by chemical means and not by digestive means. Now, this is what's really interesting. Okay, you can. This one is a one you should take away. If you consume 400 calories per pound calorie density all day, you will lose weight, no exercising. So if you don't want to exercise, you just keep your calorie density at 400 calories per pound and you will lose weight. And what is that? Just vegetables and fruit, right? 100 and 300, you're under 400. And that's why people that juice all day long and all they have is juice and vegetable and fruit smoothies, and that's all they have, they lose weight. And they don't have to exercise one iota. Now, if you're in that 400 to 800 calories per pound calorie density for the day, you can still lose weight with moderate exercise. Then you get to 800 to 1200 calories per pound, and you'll have weight gain unless you have very high exercise levels. And then if you're over 1200 calories per pound, you'll gain weight even if you exercise. Doesn't matter how much you exercise. And they found this with some of the Olympic athletes. They were getting overweight because they were exercising 8 hours a day. That was their job, but their diet was horrible. And so they were gaining weight. So we know you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. You've got to do at least the diet part. And so you can do it without exercise if you get your calorie density down. Did any of you see the film Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? Have you ever seen that? Yeah. That's what he did, right? Juicing vegetables and fruits, that's all he did. He lost a bunch of weight. I don't think he exercised much, except walking to the vegetable stands to get his fruit and veggies to process, to juice. Okay, so what else does the fiber do in your stomach? Well, it slows the stomach down. The stomach isn't going to empty as fast, it's going to slow it down, right? So it gives you the stretch and it gives you the slow down in the emptying. So that's going to make you not hungry so fast. Okay, what about the small intestine? Well, as we said before, when you have fiber, the fiber actually gloms onto the calories, and you do not absorb all of the calories that are in that food because of the fiber. The fiber attaches itself to it, the food binds to it, so you aren't able to assimilate all of it into your body. And when we're in an excessive calorie environment, that's a good thing. That's not always a good thing if you're in a really low calorie environment. And by the time you get down to the end of the lower intestine called the ileum, the small intestine, it has what they call the ileal brake. So if food is presented to that ileum, it will say, it's going to make some GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, and it's going to say, you've got enough to eat. So if stuff is getting down to the end of the small intestine, it's going to say, you've had enough. It's going to put on the brakes on your eating. Well, if all of your food and calories are absorbed above that, nothing is going to get there to shut it off. It's not going to get any signal to say, you've had enough. Okay? And so the processed foods, like the sugars and the oils, they get absorbed way up high in the intestine. They don't get down to the ileum. There's no brake applied. But fiber helps that. If you have fiber, that will help with the brake. Okay, how about the large intestine, the colon? Well, you have the microbiome particularly. And I won't spend a lot of time because we'll spend that on fiber when we talk about that tomorrow. But basically you have a lot of bacteria in your colon that come from various sources depending on where your background is and your diet and whether you've been on antibiotics and all of these other things, and they determine what kind of bacteria you have in your intestines. And can be beneficial or they can be harmful. But the short side of it is that what they do is they help produce compounds called short chain fatty acids, which are health promoting for your intestines, but for your whole body. And we'll go into that more tomorrow when we talk about vitamin F or fiber. So what about this molecule of the year? GLP-1, also known as AKA Ozempic. Have you heard of Ozempic? Or have you heard of Wegovy? Or have you heard of Mounjaro? Or all these other products that are GLP-1 lookalikes? Now GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is synthesized by your intestines. Your intestines naturally make this. Okay? What the drug companies have done is find a way to make it stronger. Because GLP-1 naturally in your intestines helps control your weight. But it doesn't last very long. So it's made and it's gone. It has to be kept to be made in order to have its effect. Well, it doesn't always want that effect. It wants you to limit you, but it doesn't want you to shut it down all the time, right? So it's there only for a short time. In order for you to get more, you have to regenerate it by repeated stimulation of the GLP-1. But the drug companies found a way. They found a substance like GLP-1, and I have no idea how they figured this out, but it's in the saliva of the Gila monster. In the saliva of the Gila monster, and I think they were looking at that because they can go for a long time without eating. So in their saliva, they found this GLP-1 molecule that's a look-alike to the human one, and then they modified it to make it last longer. And they first were able to get it to last a day, and then now they can get it to last a week. So now you only need to take it once a week. Okay? So but look at all of the functions that GLP-1 does naturally. Okay? And all of these things are good. But look at what all the things they do that's like the fiber. They slow gastric emptying. They lower the appetite. They lower your blood pressure. They do all kinds of good things, okay, naturally. But the drug companies, I should say, not we, have found a way to make it last longer and to be stronger and more powerful and be there the whole time. There's no waxing and waning of this. It's there the whole time. All right, so it's glucagon-like peptide 1. Its main effects are to tell the brain, you've had enough. You're full. You're not hungry. You don't need to eat anymore. It slows down the stomach emptying and the motility. Didn't fiber do that? Right? And it increases the insulin. So that's why they started using it to help diabetics, because it helps to increase the amount of insulin that's produced. And that would lower the blood sugars. And so it was used initially as a diabetic drug. However, they noticed people were losing weight. Wow, let's use it to help people lose weight. Let's increase the dose. Let's make it even stronger than just controlling blood sugars. Let's help people lose weight with it. And it took off like big gangbusters. Before, we've had drugs that help people lose weight. They lose maybe 5% of their weight. But now they're losing 15, 20% of their weight. Well, like, you're in a whole level, there's a whole new tier of weight loss effectiveness with this drug. And so then they develop lookalikes, and all the other drug companies jump in and try to get something similar that they can patent. And so you've got your own normal GLP-1 from the intestines on the left there that then goes to target organs like your pancreas, your stomach, and your brain, like we showed before, to give you the idea, okay, you've eaten enough, you're full, done. Well, if you eat a lot, then you get not only that, but you get more of an effect being produced. So instead, you get an injection of Ozempic, GLP-1, and it does the same thing. Okay? Without stimulating the intestines, you just get GLP-1 straight into your bloodstream to these target organs. All right, so sounds good, but there are some concerns. So here we show a comparison of those who are trying to lose weight without Ozempic, semaglutide, and those who had it at one dose and had it at a higher dose. And the higher dose is marketed as Wegovy. It's the same drug, different dose. You got to start out gradually, and you start out maybe like at 0.5 milligrams, and if you tolerate that, you go to 1, and then 1.5, and then 2, and on up. It's a gradual thing. Well, you can see, look at the placebo that wasn't getting any really drug. They lost some weight, but not very much. Those who were on the lower dose of the Ozempic, more the traditional dose, lost some weight. And those who were on the higher dose lost more weight. Okay, they went way down below. Look at that. You see that 52 that's circled? That's weeks. That's weeks being on the drug. Okay, at 52 weeks, what happens? Yes, kind of flat lines, right? Well, we'll show you another thing comparison. All right, here's another one. All right, so here you see again a weight loss drop on tirzepatide. This is Mounjaro. So it's not semaglutide, it's a lookalike, but it seems to be more powerful, and it causes a look at the change in body weight, 25% body weight change. But it's at 52 weeks, and then it goes all the way out to 88 weeks. What's happened? Flatlined again. You don't keep getting more and more weight loss. It levels off after 1 year. Okay. So this is very interesting. They looked at what are the before and after body mass index. The befores are like obese, 37.8, 35.9, 38.1. What did they end up with? 32.3, 32.3, 32.1. They're still obese. All right, they're still over 30. You've gone from more obese to less obese. Okay, here you show it again. They're still in the obese category. You did not get them to overweight or normal. So that's a concern. All right, now what happens if you go off? So you go down, you kind of leveled off at 52 weeks, you go to 68 weeks, and then you go off treatment. What happens to the weight? It comes back up. And they didn't follow it some more to see how far up it would go. They cut that one off at 120 weeks. All right. What if you don't even get to 52 weeks and you go off? Same thing happens. It starts going back up. So what is this telling you? How long do you have to be on this stuff? For as long as you want that weight to stay down. And staying on it longer does not help you lose more weight. It plateaus after a year. So let me see if I had that slide. Here's another one, switched off at 36 weeks, going back up. This is with Mounjaro. This one is, again, showing you how it flatlines at 52 weeks. So as soon as they hit 52 weeks at those arrows, there's no continued further weight loss. All right, now look this one. This one goes out, this one shows you the flat line. This one goes out to 150, let's see, how many weeks does this go out? It's a long time. And it still remains flat, okay? It goes down, levels off, and just stays there for weeks and weeks and years and years. And if you go off, you know what happens. And they're trying to explain this. Why does that happen after a year? What happens? Well, what they figure out is after a year, what happens is your metabolism has got to a certain point, and now your intake is increased. because initially the way it works is it makes you feel full, you lose your appetite, and you don't eat. And when that happens, obviously your calorie intake goes down, you lose weight. But after a while, your calorie intake starts going up. Even we see that in people that get gastric bypass surgeries or things like that, those other surgeries for weight loss. After a while, they level off because somehow they manage to get more calories in. Okay? And so that matches the amount that they have for weight maintenance, and so the weight just flatlines. It just, they don't gain, but they don't continue to lose. They match their calorie needs by increasing intake, so they do not continue to lose weight. The other issue is this, that basically about 30% do not even respond. Okay, some can't even tolerate the medication because it makes them vomit, nauseated, they just don't feel good. Because that's what it does in high doses. It just makes you not want to eat. You lose your appetite. And you have these side effects of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. So basically 30% of people don't even lose weight because they either can't stay on it long enough or it just doesn't work for them. So that leaves you with 70%. And there are some that lose a lot of weight. Those are the poster children for this. So what are some of the adverse effects? Well, short term we're talking about, and they're comparing them with Ozempic placebo and Ozempic low dose, the initial dose, and lower higher dose. And basically you see that the nausea and the vomiting go up as you go higher in dose. The discontinuance rate increases. People discontinue it because of the side effects. They have here that you can get some lipase increase. Why are they watching a lipase? What does lipase do? Well, lipase has to do with your pancreas. And so you can get acute pancreatitis with this medication. Higher amounts, 9%, 5% on these doses. And so that has to be monitored. So someone who's on Ozempic needs to be monitored for acute pancreatitis. Here's another one showing the same kind of things about nausea and the diarrhea and decreased appetite and vomiting, those, because it does slow the stomach emptying and it does decrease your appetite. So again, you have about a 5% discontinuance rate. Then there are some other issues besides pancreatitis. Those who have diabetes that are being treated with this for diabetes, well, if you have some diabetic retinopathy and there's eye changes, that could be made worse going on Ozempic. You can have some kidney damage from it. They think mainly that was because they got dehydrated, because they didn't drink enough water, because they lost their appetite. They didn't drink any water as well, so they got dehydrated, and that caused some kidney damage. But there's this risk of thyroid cancer. So they haven't demonstrated this yet in humans, but it's been in rodents. When they treated rodents with Ozempic, it causes dose-dependent and treatment duration-dependent. In other words, the longer you're on it or the higher your dose, the more likely these rodents were to get thyroid C-cell tumors. We do not know about it in humans. They're just saying you better watch out for it. But if you've got to stay on it for life, that's a long time. So what's the solution? What is the best solution for weight control and weight loss? It is whole foods. Whole food plant-based. This was a study done in New Zealand, and I don't know why they call it the broad study. I'm still trying to figure out what BROAD mean for New Zealanders, but maybe someone else knows some Kiwi language. So what they did is they just put some people on a whole food plant-based diet. And they were out in the community, and they didn't lock them up or anything like that. And they didn't tell them how many calories they were supposed to eat. They just conducted like a CHIP program or a health program. They had them meet weekly, and they gave them dietary instructions and gave them their recommendations. And they didn't necessarily tell them to exercise a lot, and they just really told them to adopt a different kind of a diet. Well, this was a very interesting study because in the end, what it showed was that there were significant improvements, and they only ran this, I think, for about like 12 weeks. Yeah, it was about 3 months. They did it for 3 months. And then they terminated the study. And then they said, I wonder what happened to these people. So they brought them back at 6 months, and then they brought them back at 12 months. And the interesting thing is, they didn't gain any weight back. They kept it off. In fact, some of them even lost more weight. Very interesting study. And this is no calorie restriction. They didn't control their calories. They just told them a better way to eat. So they found that even though they didn't have any contact with these people or have to, they found that their results were good. All they told them is to have whole grains, legumes, vegetables, and fruits, primarily. Eat until they're full. No restriction on energy intake. Don't count your calories. They tried to give them foods that they really wanted them to consume or limit or avoid, what we call the traffic light program. You have the red light foods, the yellow light foods, and the green light foods. We tell our people in our programs, green means go, yellow means slow, and red means no. Okay, so that's how we categorize foods. And so this is what they did with this group, and they when they came back, they showed, I want to show you this chart, that you can see at the, either looking at the weight or the BMI, that as they got to the 3 month, the 0 to 3 months, they lost 8.6 kilograms. That would be about 18 pounds, 19 pounds. And then at 6 months, they were down at 12 and then 11 kilos. Their body mass index dropped from 3.1 minus 4.4 minus 4.2. So they not only dropped weight, but they also kept it off. So this was the best study showing that uncontrolled calorie intake was really successful. It was the most successful program, even when it was not even, run, but just 3 months. The effects were way into 6 and 12 months. I don't know if they're going to do a 2-year follow-up or whatever, but that was a very interesting. So instead of getting GLP-1 or Ozempic artificially or pharmacologically, why not do it naturally? Because you make it yourself. Your body makes it yourself. How can you make more of it yourself? Well, these are the ways. Chew your food thoroughly. Eat slowly. Spices like turmeric, cinnamon, and cayenne pepper stimulate more of your own Ozempic. Vinegar, which has acetic acid in it, which is short-chain fatty acid, it is responsive and it stimulates GLP-1. Fiber, we talked about that. Fiber helps to promote GLP-1 secretion by stretching that stomach. When you stretch that stomach, you send signals to the vagus nerve, which helps to increase the GLP-1. You have slow carbohydrates, in other words, intact whole grain. The grain is not processed in any way, shape, or form, or its physical properties modified so that it's digested slowly as it was designed. Then there are the thylakoids. Okay, thylakoids are what's in. Does anyone know what thylakoids are in?
This is Greek vegetables, but
Have I stumped everybody that nobody knows the answer to? What are thylakoids? Who is the biologist in this congregation, in this group? Okay, thylakoids come from chlorophyll. And where does chlorophyll? In green plants, right? That's what synthesizes carbohydrate from the sun and water and carbon dioxide. That's what makes our carbohydrates, is the chlorophyll. Well, the thylakoids in the chlorophyll are in the green vegetables. And then other things like adequate sleep and avoiding alcohol also help increase your GLP-1. So they did this study about chewing your food. So if you chew your food 40 chews as opposed to 15 chews per mouthful, you had more GLP-1. You had more natural Ozempic just from chewing your food more thoroughly. So that's a simple thing you can do. All right? The other thing is how long it takes for you to eat. If you eat faster, 5 minutes, you wolf down a meal versus 30 minutes. Is it from the chewing or just the speed? But the slower you eat, the higher your level of GLP-1. Interesting. You'd think that if you wolfed it down, you'd get to your ileal brake faster. No. Okay. All right. This one was using curcumin or turmeric. Okay. Curcumin is one of the active ingredients in turmeric. And turmeric has a lot of compounds in it, but they're just measuring the curcumin out of the turmeric, and they found that with curcumin out of the turmeric, that the GLP-1 increases markedly if you consume it. So, people that use curry and have that yellow curry color, if you want to make like scrambled tofu and you want to color it with turmeric to make it look like eggs, the yellow in eggs, it's healthy. Curcumin helps your GLP-1 increase. Okay, even spicy stuff that have capsaicin in it. Okay, chili peppers, and they found even the people that eat chili peppers also live longer. I don't know, maybe because they feel like they live longer or whatever, but they live longer. And then there's these short-chain fatty acids. That's what SCFAs are, short-chain fatty acids, that when they're synthesized by the fiber, by your microbiome, they increase the GLP-1. So this is how fiber helps you lose weight. And that's why fiber deficiency is promoting weight gain. So the vagus nerve stimulation enhances GLP-1. So when you have more fiber, you stretch the stomach more, and you're going to have more GLP-1 activation. This is the whole grain hierarchy. So this is when we're talking about changing the physical properties. So we're staying 100%, but we're changing the physical properties from intact to cut to rolled to shredded to ground to flaked to puffed. And as you go down this hierarchy, the best and most healthy is intact. The worst is down to the bottom. So what's puffed whole grain? Give me an example of a puffed whole grain. What? Puffed wheat, yeah. Or Cocoa Puffs, or Rice Krispies, or, whatever is puffed, right? What about flaked? Corn flakes? Yeah. What about shredded? I thought that used to be a health food when I was growing up. Shredded wheat, right? That was like best stuff. Okay, it's slightly better than ground, okay, which is flour. So look how low flour is on the thing, and I'll tell you more about that when we talk about carbophobia tomorrow. Okay, so you can see what's best is the intact whole grain. As you get down, you get the physical properties are changed. You still get the nutrients, but it's the way it's absorbed that it gets changed because you've changed the physical properties of the starch. This is why you want the thylakoids. The thylakoids are in these green chlorophyll of the plant, and the thylakoids not only do the thylakoids surround fat and keep it from being absorbed, they get down to your ileal brake and help you stop eating, but they also help increase your natural Ozempic. And then we know that sleep. If you have sleep issues and sleep problems, that it interferes with the GLP-1, and it increases other hormones like ghrelin, which makes you hungry. It decreases leptin, which makes you feel satisfied. So when you don't get enough sleep, you get hungry and you say, I want it. I want it badly and I want it now. So we know that it increases ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, decreases the leptin, which is the satisfying hormone, and it decreases your natural Ozempic. What about alcohol? Well, I hope I don't need to talk about this to this group, but with alcohol, the calories from alcohol are additive because there's 7 calories per gram. Fat is 9 calories per gram. Carbs are only 4. Protein is only 4 calories per gram. Alcohol is 7. but it also tends to stimulate more appetite, and it can also lead to disinhibition or bad choices because it affects your cognition, your thinking, your choosing area of the brain, the frontal lobe, and you may make bad choices. So there's a lot of problems with using this, and it also decreases the effectiveness of GLP-1. So you want to avoid the things that diminish the effects on your natural Ozempic, and you want to do those things which increase. Exercise, yes, it helps, but it really helps with maintaining weight loss. That's done with nutrition or diet primarily. It helps to maintain muscle mass while you're losing weight, and it helps prevent weight regain. So most people that have lost weight successfully and keep it off have been in some kind of activity program. And any kind of activity is better than none. What we call non-exercise activity, that's just daily living. That's kind of what we talked about, the lifestyle of those in the blue zones that don't have necessarily, a gym or a place like that they go to for exercising. So what about fasting? So with all this, you're doing all of this and still having some difficulty, you can do fasting. And there's various forms of fasting that you can do, from the minimal to the extreme. And the extreme is at the bottom, water-only fasting. And that should be done only under the supervision of a physician. Okay, you do not want to do this at home, like that thing on the thing, do not do this at home. So you do not want to do this at home on your own. And it could go up to 40 days. That's an interesting number, biblical number. And you only get water and maybe some vegetable broth, and sometimes they give you some herbal tea, which is basically water. That is the most extreme. But there is all the way up to the top, and that is an interesting one. It's called time-restricted eating. So you limit the time of eating to a certain hours of the day. And we're not talking about from 7 to 8 in the morning, 12 to 1 at noon, and 6 to 7 or 5 to 6 in the evening. That's not time. We're talking about a prolonged time restricted. Okay, so where you're going 16 hours, 18 hours of fasting. Okay, but that's every day. So you're maybe only eating from noon until 6 p.m. or 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. or whatever. So that's time restricted. Your fasting duration is from 12 to 20 hours, but it's done daily. It's done daily. If you don't want to do daily, you can do alternate day fasting, which is longer. You can do twice a week fasting, which is you got to do 2 consecutive days. You can do, you can do any combination thereof. But we've found that the best way for most people is the time restricted eating. They limit themselves maybe to 2 meals a day. And that's it. They may have a good breakfast and lunch, and then that's it. Or they have a lunch and a dinner, or they have a late lunch and an early dinner, and that's it. So reducing to 2 meals a day sometimes is very effective for people. All right, so basically when you eat, I don't know if you can read this very well. Can you read it?
A little bit.
It's pretty small. Huh? You have to change this one to a larger font. So basically you want to markedly decrease or eliminate animal protein. Okay, that was one of the big factors for weight gain, was animal protein. And you want to substitute a whole food plant-based diet. You want to increase the fiber. Okay, you have to really focus on getting more fiber with fruits, vegetables, legumes, and intact whole grains. And you want to make them at least 75% of the meal. You want to decrease the calorie density of your meals by increasing fruits and vegetables, eliminating oil, and the processed foods, particularly the processed grain, the white flour. Another strategy, to drink 2 cups of water prior to a meal. And structure your meals so that you start with water, which has 0 calories, to something that's also low in calories, like salads, vegetables, fruit, whatever, and then go through the meal, and so that you're getting to your higher calorie density foods towards the end. You're going to be more full, less likely to eat a lot of the higher calorie dense food. You can ruin a salad by putting oil on it. So you're starting with 100 calorie per pound food with salad, and then you added 4,000 calories per pound with oil. So you're going to get something in between, depending on how much oil you use. So that's what you have to be careful of. Eat slowly and chew your food thoroughly, because that increases your GLP-1. Walk. You know, if you don't have to get out and beat the pavement, but just trying to walk less than an hour after the meal, so that you lower that blood sugar rise, and so you're getting some activity, but it's really helping keeping that blood sugar low. So that keeps their insulin low, which then makes you accumulate fat less. Getting adequate sleep, avoiding alcohol, managing stress. And that has multiple ramifications. Stress does in regards to what you do and how you know, because some people eat to deal with stress, but other people don't eat when they're stressed. I mean, so it kind of depends on the person. But also when they're stressful, they're having stress hormones, which are not good for their body and not good for their weight usually either. So do all those things that increase GLP-1 naturally, which is the fiber and the thylakoids, the green vegetables, all those things. That's what makes you want to do green smoothies. You know, you're going to get a lot of thylakoids by having green smoothies. Use intermittent fasting or that timed fasting if necessary. And the most important thing, trust in divine power. A lot of these things are very difficult to break. But if you have the right motivation, as we talked about this morning, about wanting to love God, to offer your body as a living sacrifice, to preserve every faculty you have in the best condition for the highest service to God and man, if you have that purpose, God will honor that. God will honor that and give you the power to make those changes. All right. Any questions? Yes?
On the calorie density?
Yeah, calorie density.
How do you correlate it with calories per day?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You don't have to count calories. You just need to know kind of the calorie density of the food groups. And as long as you're aware of that and keep more towards the lower calorie dense foods, you don't have to count the calories. Yeah. Good question though. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Asking for a friend.
Okay.
When you talk about eating time frames,
Mm-hmm.
you eat once a day or within certain periods of time. The times that you're fasting, is there anything bad happening to you because you don't eat? Any irritation in your stomach or
When you're fasting?
anything counterproductive? Because if you fast once a month or once a year, but if you do it regularly to lose weight, to fasting, or you are eating like that for months, is there anything bad that can happen to you?
Good question. So the question was, anything bad happen to you when you're doing this timed fasting or timed eating day after day after day? So what you want to avoid is what we call starvation. You're not trying to do starvation, you're trying to do calorie restriction. So this is really a way to do calorie restriction. And what they find is calorie restriction, if you remember one of the slides this morning, was that calorie restriction helps with longevity. Okay, it's one of the things that help promote longevity is calorie restriction through a lot of different pathways, out of 10 out of 11 pathways. So you're not going for starvation, and that's why water only supervised fast is getting, they have to be careful and watch that person for starvation, for the signs of starvation, because then the body's eating itself. You don't want that. Yeah. So you want to do calorie restriction without getting to the starvation category. So yes, you want to do every day is okay, and going 12, 16 hours, 18 hours even without eating, consuming can be fine. You won't have any bad effects. Obviously you have to keep up the water and all the other things, but yeah, there aren't really any bad effects from that. That's a good
But
question.
You can also reach a plateau because in this case, this person lost 15 kilograms.
15 kilos? Okay.
Yes, in about 4 months, but then stay there. It's really hard to lose them more.
Yeah,
Keeping the same diet, the same way.
yeah. It's pretty much, it's, how long was that plateau?
Months, couple of months.
Couple of months. Yeah,
My friend is me. I'm just kidding what I said.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
no, you should still do it.
Yeah.
You should still do it. Because after a while, the body is going to go down again. Or you have to start looking at it and see, well, what did I do differently, or what did I change? Because sometimes things, like you've lowered your metabolism to a certain point, and then you've matched that with, just like on the Ozempic, why did their weight loss plateau? So some things start matching together, and so then you plateau. So then you have to change it up. You have to do something different, to go down again. But yeah, I'll talk to your friend about it,
Yes.
and we'll discuss things about what you might do differently. Yes.
What if somebody's on insulin?
If someone's on insulin,
Fasting.
oh, fasting, not a good idea. Yeah, if they're on insulin, that wouldn't be one of the strategies you'd want to take care of the diabetes part. But part of taking the diabetes is helping to lose weight. I mean, if someone has type 2 diabetes, it's interesting, they found that with type 2 diabetes, if you can get someone to lose 33 pounds, 15 kilos, their diabetes goes away. They'd be off insulin and all this, which is interesting. And so they've put people on 500 calorie a day diets. They just give you, this is what you eat for the day, and they have these people lose a bunch of weight, and the diabetes went away. And then of course when they went off, then the weight came back, diabetes came back. But they did prove that by losing that much weight, and it seems to be 15 kilos, you can get rid of their diabetes. Interesting. So, but yeah, you don't want to do that fasting particularly around insulin, because you have nothing to help keep your blood sugar up if you're fasting for a long time. You could do it, but you have to be only on short-term doses of insulin. Like, you only take it every time you ate, and then when you weren't eating, you didn't take any insulin. You could still work with that, but you couldn't take that long-acting insulin. That once-a-day insulin, that would be a problem with fasting, prolonged fasting. Any other questions? You guys have endured a lot today.
Thank you.
So we'll see it, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be about label reading. We've got some tools for you to take home. And we'll talk about fiber, particularly more in depth on fiber, and also on what we call carbophobia. You might hear a lot of people, I only thought about that one only because people hear about, like, they got to cut out the carbs. They're carbophobic. And we say that they're so carbophobic, and there's what's carbophobic? It means fear of carbs, right? They're so afraid of carbs that the saying goes, they're so fearful of carbs you could hold up a bank with a bagel.
Yeah.
So, all right.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Okay.
Have a prayer for us.
Oh, okay. Let me pray for you. Father in heaven, we just thank you so much for these people that are here, and hopefully they've been hearing you speak through all of this, the information and the knowledge that they've gained. And I just pray that you, as you convict them of whatever changes, if they need to make any, that you will impress upon them that and give them means by which they can make these changes, and the power by themselves offering themselves to you as living sacrifices, willing to serve you and serve their fellow men in the highest way possible, that you would certainly come through them, work through them and with them to help them make these changes that will bring honor and glory to you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Dr. Dave.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Safe trip home, everybody. See you